Hello, and thank you for joining today's special webinar entitled Community Connections, Charting the Future of Lung Cancer Trials. In this important installment of the Community Connections Health Series, Dr. Raez will provide valuable insights into three major types of clinical trials that are transforming care for individuals living with lung cancer. My name is Alejandra Navas, and I'm with Memorial Healthcare System and Memorial Cancer Institute, the presenting sponsor for today's session. We are excited to be partnering with the American Lung Association on this cutting-edge topic. Before we get started, we wanted to share a brief video regarding MCI's commitment to research and clinical trials.
A research study that she did became the standard of care for what I did.
Memorial Cancer Institute, in conjunction with Florida Atlantic University, now is part of the Florida Cancer Centers of Excellence.
We have a very robust research program with over 50 clinical trials available.
Bringing this research to the patients, that is our commitment. Bringing therapies, drugs 2 or 3 years before the FDA approval.
With that, I'd like to introduce our presenter, Dr. Raez. Dr. Raez is a leading hematologist and oncologist at Memorial Cancer Institute, where he serves as director of the Thoracic Oncology Program. With more than 2 decades of experience treating lung and head and neck cancers, Dr. Raez is also a renowned cancer researcher and educator. He designs clinical trials, advances cancer vaccine research, and teaches at multiple universities, including Florida International University and Florida Atlantic University. He is currently the president of the Florida Society of Clinical Oncology and an internationally recognized voice in cancer care. And with that, Dr. Raez, the floor is all yours.
Okay, thanks for the introduction. Thanks for the American Lung Association for this partnership. We're always happy to collaborate and try to help in lung cancer education. We are going to start. This is a very short presentation. It's only 20 minutes, but give us an idea about the challenges that we're doing lung cancer research. It's very, the public always asks me why it takes so long to discover a new drug, why it's so difficult to find a new therapy. As you can see in this list, of challenges that we have. Research is very expensive. To recruit subjects is very expensive because not all the patients are eager to go to a clinical trial. They may not trust about the trial. They may not trust the system. There is also cultural barriers. For example, I'm Hispanic, and Hispanics, traditionally, we don't like too much research because we don't trust about research. Other populations are different. So that's why we face this every day. That's why we are trying to give you an idea about how important is this. The fact is that we have very few people in clinical trials, and that's not good for the patients. According to the National Cancer Institute, we barely cure half or a little bit more of the patients. So there is a good number of patients, more than 40%, that talks hundreds of thousands of Americans, that they don't get cured yet because we need better therapies. And sometimes when the standard of care finish, there are no options for them. That's why it's very important that you get access to a trial because, as I said in the video that we just presented, getting access to the trial allows you to have therapy that is not available yet, and that can make a difference in your life, in your survival, and that's very important to be part of the study. This is more or less what it takes, why research takes so long. As you can see, this is the classic model. Sometimes takes 15 years for a new drug to arrive and get FDA approval. Because as you can see, more than half of the time, the first 6.5 years, these drugs are work in the laboratories, in basic science people. They are working animal models, tissues. So that's why when the drug comes available to the people, to us, to do the clinical trials with the patients, we, as you can see in the picture, we call them phase 1, phase 2, and then phase 3. But all of this process may easily take another 7 years. That's why it takes a lot of time, and it's very expensive for a drug to be approved. That's why in this slide we mentioned maybe $1.5 billion for a drug to get approved, and according to our industry partners, that's the reason why the drugs are so expensive, because they need to recover all of this investment when we get a drug approval. Nowadays, there is more hope because the second part, when the patient goes to phase 1, 2, or 3, has been expedited by the FDA because we have now, I want to mention today, target therapy. So that in the past, we used to give a drug to two groups of patients, and so one group of patients does better, and then we can say, oh, this drug is work. Now we do precision medicine, target therapy. We design a drug with a target, we call target therapy. And for that reason, now we don't need to spend maybe 7 years testing that drug. Sometimes when we do phase 1 or phase 2, we can already get a temporary FDA approval without waiting for the phase 3. And we save some years of research and the drugs become available. That's the fact what has happened with several oral therapies, some pills that we have approved for lung cancer. They have conditional approvals because we saw from the phase 1 and 2 that the responses were amazing, and there is no reason to delay and keep our patients waiting to have access to this agent. So that's why I don't want to be negative. This is what is in the past, but now in the future, hopefully together, we're changing this. So the phase 1 trial, so that when the drug becomes available for the patients, these are the phase trials in humans. Basically, in the past, we used very toxic chemotherapy. We were trying to see during this trial how much the patients can tolerate this new drug, so we can give later in a much larger study. And then we record all the adverse events. So we learn this drug works very well, for example, in mice, in monkeys, but now we are going to treat humans. This is much different. This can be not as safe as we believe it. So that's why the phase 1 studies, basically, we try to find what is the dose of the agent, what are the side effects, and these are small studies. We only treat a very small number of patients for safety, and then we move to phase 2. Phase 2 trials is now we know that the drug is safe. The drug, we know what is the dose that we can use without hurting anybody, and we know that the dose that probably will work. And now we do this phase 2 trial. Phase 1 studies usually is no more than dozens, 12, 24, 36 people, no more. Phase 2 studies, we're talking about 100 people, maybe 100 people, 200 people. Now that we know, as I said, the drug is safe, I want to know now if the drug is efficient, that is efficacious against the tumor. So now I already know the drug is safe. I already know the doses. So the most important thing in the phase 2, in a larger number of patients, as I said, is if the drug is efficacious. And that is important. And sometimes also, nowadays, I remember I told you about precision medicine, target therapy. We don't give the drug to everybody, as we do. In the past, we have a new drug for lung cancer. We give the same drug to everybody, and we didn't know why sometimes it works and sometimes doesn't work. Now that we know about the genes, we tailor the drug for specific genes. In other words, we may do a phase 2 study only for one type of genes. For example, there is lung cancers that have a gene called EFR. Okay, so we develop a drug only for EFR positive tumors. We develop in breast cancer, remember the HER2 gene is very important. We develop drugs for breast cancer for HER2 positive tumors. In that way, we tailor the therapy and we apply biomarkers to do that. So that's why when we're doing phase 2, not only we don't treat everybody, we do precision medicine now. And finally, the phase 3, okay? We did the phase 2, the drug seems to be promissory, a large number of patients responded, everybody was safe, the toxicity was okay. But now we need to compare. This is the part that patients don't like a lot because we need to compare the new drug with the control. So the control is the old drug, the standard of care. And so everybody has the bias that, the new drug is better. That's not necessarily true. In the past, when we didn't do precision medicine and we compared two drugs, more than 90% of the studies were negative, meaning that the new drug was not better, or sometimes it was more toxic. Nowadays, because as I said, we use biomarkers, we try to find targets, the drugs are much more efficacious. So that is why the studies are much better, they are more successful. So now we do phase 3 studies that are a little bit more successful than before, because we're doing, but basically a phase 3 trial is a comparison between two groups. It's a randomized comparison. And we randomize, sometimes patients don't like that. They say, I want to choose which group I love. We cannot choose because we don't want to have bias. So the computer chooses and assign a patient to a new treatment or the old treatment, And as I said, to be in the control group in the old treatment may not be bad, because if this new drug is not good or more toxic and cause more harm or doesn't work, you don't want to be there. You rather play safe and be in the old drug that at least we know that there are some benefits. That's why it's already FDA approved. And anyway, so this is what is a phase 3 study. And then phase 4 studies are safety. Okay, a lot of times we approve drugs for phase 3 with, 600 patients, 700 patients, but we're going to treat with these drugs the humankind. And this is a good example. And I'll give you the example of the phase 4. This is a real life example. This example is with a drug called, used to be called Vioxx. Yeah, this drug called Vioxx, it was good for arthritis, for pain. It's like a much improved version of ibuprofen. And some of us used to take this drug. I used to play sports, high intensity sports, and you always get back pain and knee pain. And I used to take this, for example, for pain, for bone pain. This drug was approved, and basically, I'm trying to remember, I think it was a randomized study that showed it's better than the ibuprofen and the standard of care. And then we start to get the FDA approved and use the drug. However, as more hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of us start to take the drug, the FDA start to discover, same as the AMA, that there were people that was having cardiotoxicity, cardiac problems. And then finally the drug was suspended and the drug is not in use anymore. The maker, Merck Chardon, withdrew the application 20 years ago because the drug was not found to be safe, because they cause these cardiovascular risks and events. But it took the phase 4 study to discover that. In other words, when we did the phase 1, 2, 3, because there were a small number of patients, even in the phase 3, if I remember, were only hundreds. Once that we use for everybody, in the humanity, we're 8 billion people, you start to see more side effects, maybe as more people are exposed. So that's why these phase 4 studies, these are not in the news, but they are done in the background. Once that the drug is FDA approved and everybody is taking the drug, being prescribed the drug, whatever the drug you take, the FDA is still working with the maker in the background and some of us to keep collecting data to be sure that the drug is safe. So we build databases of safety. See, the drug was approved for 500 or 600 people. We do a phase 4 study of 5,000 people. So now we get a database of 5,000 people that also corroborates that the drug is safe. We are going to talk now about immunotherapy. So I was talking about target therapy. Immunotherapy is basically, immunotherapy is a protein. It's an antibody that we give you in the vein to enhance your immune system, and your own immune system goes to kill tumors. So this protein that we give you release your immune system, and it has been an amazing experience. We have this example with pembrolizumab, commercially known as Keytruda, but we have 3 or 4 more agents in the market. And this is an example. This is a study for metastatic non-small cell lung cancer, and for patients that have a marker. Remember, we do now precision medicine. We not only give the drug, we're giving here Keytruda, but now we're looking for a marker to see which patients do better. And the ones that do better or have a better chance, we pinpoint and give those patients this drug and maybe not to other patients. So in this case, the marker is called PD-L1. It's a marker in your tumor. So it is this patient with metastatic disease, lung cancer, they have a marker saying PD-L1 more than 50%. Yeah, 1/3 of all the lung cancer patients have this marker. So you can see that comparing Keytruda with chemo, Keytruda is in green and chemo is in red, we have a good response, and the patients can be alive 5 years, 31% versus 16%. This is something amazing I never seen before, because the chemo, as you can see, we duplicate the survival using immunotherapy. The problem with immunotherapy, and that's the challenge, is that we still are giving this drug to everybody, as you can see in the first row, and the benefit is still low. Yeah, because we cure 30% of the patients, but 30% is low because we still lose 70% of the patients. And that's why we need to do further analysis with more biomarkers, as you can see downstairs in the different colors, and these are some potential biomarkers to try to enhance the response, and instead of curing 30%, hopefully we can cure more people. And that's what also we do with target therapy. I'm going back now to the target therapy, to the pills. In the past, there were only 3 types of lung cancer in the left. Now we have in the right many types of lung cancer based on the genes. And even the genes change. You have a patient in the left, for example, here, treated by erlotinib, gefitinib, we call TKI therapy, and his genetic component of the tumor changed with the time. So that's why when we do now this molecular testing in the patients, in the tissue that we do in the blood, needs to be done at the beginning, and then needs to be done during the treatment, because the molecular landscape, the genes may change, and then give us opportunity to use other therapies to help the patient and keep doing precision medicine instead of giving empirically chemotherapy that the benefit is very small. As you saw in the first curve, that with the chemotherapy we cure very small number of patients. This is an example, for example, of something new. This study, Mariposa, uses a drug called amivantamab plus an oral pill called lacertinib. And this is the standard of care, or one of the 2 standard of care for patients where they have EGFR mutations now. And you can see that the survival improves based compared with the single agent therapy. So that's why precision medicine, again, we do precision medicine, we do a clinical trial like this, we associate a pill, lacertinib, plus an antibody, amivantamab, and that is better than osimertinib. This is a real example because we discovered this drug osimertinib in gray first 5 years ago, and that has been for 5 years our standard of care. Now we have added an antibody called amivantamab, and amivantamab plus lacertinib, another oral agent, is better. So we just found last month, as you can see, that the survival is much better when we do the combination, and we only are talking about here patients that have EGFR positive tumors. Again, precision medicine. We don't give this therapy to everybody. We give patients that have tumors. And another example is this NTRK. These NTRK genetic aberrations, NTRK fusions, are present in kids or adults, and they are not very common, but we have a treatment for them. In 2018, we did a phase 1 study, phase 2, only with 55 patients. Only with 55 patients, we got a conditional FDA approval. I was part of this group. It was a blessing to see all of these patients that we treated, 55, most of them already have failed standard of care. And we did this phase 1 or 2 study hoping to rescue some of them, and we ended rescuing most of them. That's why the FDA gave us approval. But this drug works for 18 different tumors. Because now, not only we're tailoring therapy for, this is lung cancer, there is a chemo for lung cancer. No, now we're tailoring therapy based on genes. And this is the best example. Look again. There are many different tumors here, but all of them have the same genetic aberration. And because we are targeting the genetic aberration, we are successful. Doesn't matter if the tumors are from the kids, from the adults, as you can see in this picture. Doesn't matter if it's lung cancer, colon cancer, melanoma. The same pill is efficacious as long as the patient have the target, the genetic aberration. So we call this agnostic tumor therapy. It's another example of precision medicine. Once that we find the target, we attack the target. As I said, doesn't matter which part of the body is the target, because I know traditionally there is chemos for lung, chemos for breast, chemos for colon, but that is changing. We're switching for precision medicine, target therapy. We look for the genes, we find the genes, and we find the genes like this. We give this agent or any other agent, and they are very efficacious, as you can see. Finally, because we have to finish, I have 2 words about, they told me to talk about small cell lung cancer. Small cell lung cancer is only present in 15% of the lung cancers. It's still a lot of people, 30,000 Americans, and, they want me to talk about small cell a couple of words because nobody likes to talk about small cell. They say, it's very uncommon, and nobody does very well. But anyway, we have good news for small cell. We just had a drug approved recently. Finally, the reason we have good news is because same thing I kept mentioning the whole talk. Now there is research in target therapy. So we have discovered that we can use a marker called DLL3 that is here in red or dark pink. And so Amgen engineered this drug is an antibody, it's an antibody. And you can see that one of the heads is this target, DLL3, and the other head is CD3 in orange. CD3 is to attach to the human cells. DL3 attached to the cancer. And you see this drug has been very successful. It has been able to rescue people with small cell lung cancer. So you can see in this graphic, so we have people on tarlatamab that has been surviving. Most of the patients don't do very well. But remember, small cell after failing chemo is a terminal condition. And at least if you see to the right, there is a group of patients, maybe 20%, 30%, that we can keep them alive with a good quality of life for at least 1.5 years. So that's why there's a small number of patients benefit from this, but we're doing more studies with this technology because it's a very good technology that can give hope to our patients. This is the survival curve. As you can see, not everybody responds, but when the patients survive, they can stay a long time on this agent. Well, thank you very much for attending. If you have time, we can answer some questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Raez. Actually, we have a few questions in the chat. So at this time, we're going to turn our attention to the audience's questions. And I'll go ahead and read. I'm going to start at the top. The first one. What are the biggest risks or side effects of joining a lung cancer trial, and how are patients monitored for safety?
As I said before, in the past, when I started to do this 25 years ago, we used to prepare chemical agents and infuse to the patients. That's chemo, no? It's a chemical agent. It was risky because especially in phase 1 studies, we need to be sure that they are not toxic for the patients. Nowadays, we don't do that anymore. Now we we do research to find the genes first that cause the cancer, and then we engineer a drug that attack these genes. A lot of these drugs are oral agents, so they are less toxic than the ones that we used before. So the risks have decreased a lot for clinical trials. So they are much safer than they used to be thanks to the discoveries of the last 20 years.
Thank you. If I join a clinical trial, am I guaranteed to receive the new experimental treatment, or could I be placed in a control group?
It depends, as I said. No, if it's this phase 3, we need to compare. The computer will assign you either for the new drug or the old drug. If it's phase 1 or 2, everybody gets the same treatment, so you will get the new drug. But as I did as a warning, the new drug may be better, but not necessarily all the new drugs are better. As I tell the patients, that sometimes it's better the old drug, that at least you know what to expect or what to respond, than the new drug that may fail and not show any benefit. And so that's why not necessarily new is better. That's why we allow the computer to make the choice, because even as a doctor, I like to discover things. Every time that somebody puts me a new drug on front, I am trying to be biased. Oh, this is better, and it's not necessarily better. And it's the same for the patients. I understand. If I'm fighting for my life, I want the new one. But that's why for safety, for your own safety, we let the machine decide. And as I said, if the trial is good, the new drug beats the old one. If the trial is negative, the old drug will beat the new one. Yeah, so that's why. But if you go to a phase 1 or 2 trial, you always get the new drug.
Thank you. I think that's an important distinction. Are there extra costs or financial burdens for patients or families who join lung cancer trials at Memorial Cancer Institute?
No, because in general, for the clinical trials, because this is not standard of care, the sponsor, the industry partner, is the one that pays for the drug, pays for the study, pays for all this extra. Sometimes, when we are investigating a new drug, we need to do extra blood draws, extra scans, because we want to see how the patient is responding. We do extra blood draws to see if there is any extra toxicities, no? Because sometimes when you are in conventional therapy, we check your blood every 3 weeks, but because it's a new drug, for safety, we want to check your blood maybe every week. So all of these extra costs are covered by the industry sponsor. The patients are not supposed to pay anything.
That's great to know. Thank you. What are the most exciting lung cancer research breakthroughs happening right now at Memorial Cancer Institute?
Well, we were very blessed because, as we said in the commercial, we we cannot do all the trials. There is hundreds of trials. In Memorial Cancer Institute, we have 65 clinical trials. But we've been very, I said, blessed because in the last 10 years, some of the trials that we pick got FDA approval. In other words, we have a lot of patients at Memorial that have been treated with drugs that were not available for 2 or 3 years before FDA approval, and they benefit from them. So that is our goal. Our goal is to try to get drugs that are in research that are good, so the patients can have options, especially they have failed the standard of care. The patients have failed the standard of care, the life expectancy is short, so we're trying to see if they can have access to these drugs, even if they are not available, and the only way is through a clinical trial. So that's our mission, as a cancer center, is to try to protect our patients the best that we can, and one of the ways is to give them access, early access to new agents.
Thank you. Can participating in a clinical trial limit my future treatment options if the trial does not work for me?
Yes, because most of the time when we do a trial, we find in 6 to 8 weeks if the drug works. So that's why if the drug doesn't work, the clinical trial drugs, we put you back on standard of care or in a new clinical trial if you qualify. So that's why we cannot risk more than 8 weeks or 10 weeks in a study that if the drug is not going to work. Same as we do with the standard of care. No? We never treat you more than that without doing a scan to be sure that you are benefiting from the drug.
Thank you. And I'll make this one the last question for the moment. You said that precision medicine focuses on the gene, not necessarily exact placement of the tumor, like chemo. Does that mean precision therapy is more effective as preventative treatment for metastasis?
Yes, because for example, in lung cancer now, same as in breast cancer, after your surgery, you have a chance that the tumor may come back. The reason why the tumor comes back is because there is probably some microscopic tumor that is hiding from the eyes of the surgeons. So that's why in lung cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer, we always give you therapy after. But we cannot be giving you chemotherapy. Sometimes we give you a little bit of chemotherapy because you can be treating people that are already cured. We don't know who is cured or not after surgery. That's why precision medicine is better, because if we know that your tumor, for example, I mentioned today the EGFR case is the most common gene in lung cancer. If you have an EGFR tumor, I can give you an oral agent, a pill, for 3 to 4 years. It's a safe pill, it's non-toxic, and that pill, I am sure that if you have cancer, it will work against the cancer because it has the receptor that will attack the cancer because the cancer has the receptor. It's very different to give empirical chemo. I cannot give just in case chemo to somebody for 3 or 4 years. It will cause harm,
Thank you. All right. Dr. Raez, thank you so much for today. Well, that's all we have time for today. But for the questions that we were unable to get to, please make sure to send those to the email provided on screen and in the chat. You'll receive a response in the upcoming week or so with answers to your questions. Thank you again, everyone, for attending today's American Lung Association Communications webinar presented by Memorial Cancer Institute. Once again, thank you, Dr. Raez, for your behind-the-scenes look at the innovation and advancements that are shaping the way we treat lung cancer. We hope that this information will empower anyone impacted by lung cancer to explore with their doctor the steps to determining if any of these pathways are appropriate for them. To learn more about Memorial Cancer Institute resources and the current trials, please visit the link in the chat. Additionally, the American Lung Association is committed to advancing research and steps needed to defeat lung cancer. When you support the American Lung Association, you are supporting one of our great partners invested in this effort with us. Together, we can create a world free of lung cancer and lung disease. To explore the American Lung Association's resources, tools, and ways to take action, please visit the link in the chat and on the screen. Also, don't forget to follow the South Florida American Lung Association on Facebook for announcements regarding our next community connections and webinar events. Follow ALA at Lung SOFLA for details and Instagram. Until next time, thank you all. And remember, together we can improve life one breath at a time. Have a great day.